This is Tuesday, January 27th, 2015, and we are going to check in. Let's start with you, Elaine, since your gorgeous face is on the screen first. Who you are, where you're calling in from, and one peaceful thing that you have done today.
All right. I'm calling in from La Quinta, California, and the sun is just setting behind the mountains. It was a beautiful day today. And a peaceful thing that I did today was actually having a meeting with some dear friends that we are just starting a new joint venture that is about purchasing a property in Sedona, Arizona, that will be for multiple people to use and share for very spiritual, peaceful gatherings. So I'm feeling good about that.
Fantastic. Thank you, Elaine.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, how about you? Are you with us, Eric? Okay, while we're waiting for Eric to show up, Leah. Leah is also going to be our member speaker tonight. So just really briefly, who you are, where you're calling in from, and just one little tiny piece of peace for us.
Okay. I'm Leah Bolger. I'm calling from Corvallis, Oregon, and today I spend most of my time working on the Drone Quilt project, which is something I am coordinating, and it was recently, the Drone Quilt project was exhibited at a interfaith conference in Princeton Theological Seminary, where they had a conference, an interfaith conference on drones, and so I was really excited to see that the Drone Quilt project was hung and behind the speakers, and so getting some exposure out about the U.S.'s use of immoral and illegal drones in combat.
Great. Thank you. When you present, Leah, for me, there's a little bit of a breakup. So if you would enunciate and speak slowly, we'll try to make up for that poor signal.
Okay.
Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Krasinski, and I'm calling in from Seattle, Washington today. And the peaceful thing I'm working on, I don't know about directly peaceful, but the project that I'm working on is a meetup that educates small business owners about how to use WordPress. So this is a workshop that we're putting on for the community. So we're excited about that, to bring this resource to the small business community here in Seattle, Washington. So.
Fantastic, Lisa. Hey, Genesis, can we hear from you?
Hi. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. So I am calling from Honolulu, Hawaii, on the island of Oahu, and something peaceful I did this morning. I've been getting up really early working, so I get to see the sunrise from my desk at home. That's always really nice peaceful moment.
Thanks so much, Genesis. Hey, Eric, are you connected back in with us? Okay, I'll go ahead and check in. I'm Kat Haber. I'm calling in from Washington, D.C., and the peaceful thing I've done today is to speak to traditionally conservative leaders of our federal government about climate change, which is the most peaceful thing that I can imagine doing any day, is ensuring the survivability of our species. So, let's see. Traditionally, Rotary is not is apolitical, but I feel like climate change is not a political issue. It's something beyond that. Eric, are you with us? Okay. All right. Leah, if you want to go ahead and tee up your presentation.
Okay. I switched my, I put on headphones with the microphone. Is my sound better now?
It's a little better, yes.
Okay.
It's good from my end.
Okay, great.
Can you see it?
There we go.
Yes, we can see it, and if you'd like to make it full screen, we'll see it even better.
It is full screen. You're not seeing that?
Yeah, we can see that.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't look like full screen, though?
I think
It's
maybe
fine.
you just
We can read it fine, though.
From start, it'll be full screen.
From start, right, I did from start, and I did, I thought I was doing, so does that look like full screen?
No.
Oh, that's weird. It's full screen to me.
Okay. It's
So
okay. We can read it easily.
Okay, all right, as long as you can read it. Okay, well, that's as big as I can get it then, but, yeah, strange. Strange. Okay. Well, did you want me to begin then, or?
Please do.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Leah, is there something that you would like us to know about your background that brings you to this presentation?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So, yes, I was set to tell you a little bit about myself before I get into the main topic. So I hope that's all right.
Please do.
Okay. So I joined the Navy in 1980, and I already had my bachelor's degree. So I went to Officer Candidate School, and I was commissioned as an ensign in 1980, and then I spent 20 years on active duty and retired in the summer of 2000. And after I retired, my husband also spent a career in the Navy, and after we both retired on the same day, we spent about 3 years or 4 years traveling. First we lived on a sailboat, and then we lived on an RV, and we land cruised and we water cruised, and we had a great time. And we weren't really very active with anything really. I mean, our politics were kind of progressive leaning, but we weren't actively doing anything about it. But I did join Veterans for Peace, and that is where most of my activist background has come from, is for Veterans for Peace. I formed a chapter here where I live in Corvallis, Oregon. And then I served as the president of our chapter for 3 years, and then I was elected to the National Veterans for Peace Board, where I served as the vice president for 3 years, and then I was elected as the first female national president of Veterans for Peace in 2012. Other things that I've worked with that have helped me network and meet other people, anti-war movement or peace movement. Camp Democracy was a month-long series of events in Washington, D.C. in 2006. That's where I met a whole lot of people. And then I worked on a national campaign called Bring the Guard Home, about trying to convince governors that they did not have to release their National Guard troops to be sent to Afghanistan and Iraq unless there were legitimate legal authority, and our premise was that the Congress had not provided that legal authority. So it got a good bit of attention, and I met a lot of people on the Bring the Guard Home campaign that I've continued to work with over the years. The National Priorities Network is a network of organizations along with the National Priorities Project, which talks about rearranging the way our money is spent, our national budget, and currently how it's spent so disproportionately on militarism and war, and moving that budget into things that we really need and use, like clean air and housing and education, healthcare, those kinds of things. I also served on the coordinating committee of UNAC, United National Anti-War Coalition, and I stepped off of that coordinating committee when I became the president of Veterans for Peace, but I'm still in connection with those people. In 2012, the year I was the president of VFP, I went on a delegation to Pakistan that was organized by Code Pink. And that is really what got me involved in anti-drone work. And I met several families whose loved ones had been killed by American drones.
Those kinds of things. I also served on the coordinating committee
I'm getting a delayed feedback of my own voice now. It's very disconcerting.
I stepped off of that coordinating committee.
I'll try to ignore it, but it's bad. So the delegation to Pakistan was very, very, I think it's stopped now, great, was really a wonderful experience, and I think everybody who was on that delegation feels, or felt at least, a responsibility to go and tell the stories that we heard. So I've done a good bit of speaking about drones, and then the Drones Quilt project that I'm working on about combat drones. The Green Shadow Cabinet was something I'm still actually carry the title of Secretary of Defense for the Green Shadow Cabinet. This was put together by Jill Stein, who ran for president on the Green Party ticket last time, and she put together a shadow cabinet to present position papers and alternatives to what the two parties are putting out there, and so I did that for I did it for about a year. I'm currently pretty involved with WILF, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, which are celebrating their 100th year of existence this year. And I am going to be a delegate, or an alternate delegate, I should say, to the International WILF Congress at The Hague in April this year. And just following the Congress will be an International Peace Convention at The Hague as well. So I'm looking forward to that, and it's a great opportunity to network with others. I mentioned the Drones Quilt project. Not long ago, I was asked to be on the board of something called the War Prevention Initiative. I'm a board member on that. But most of my efforts right now are going into World Beyond War, and that is what I'm going to be talking to you about for the rest of my presentation. So World Beyond War, this is our logo, and it's the infinity symbol wrapped around the world. And this is the website, and I highly encourage everyone to go to the website and check it out. There is so much information there. It's really solid website. And then this part, I wanted to point out a global movement to end all wars, and I'm going to be talking about those two words, global and movement, and ending wars. Actually, it's a really good tagline for our organization. It's not just a peace organization. So how World Beyond War came to be was that David Swanson, some of you may have heard of him, he's written several books about war, and he's not very old. It's relatively short lifespan. He's done a lot of writing about war, and his latest book is called War No More, The Case for Abolition. And this gentleman, David Hartsoe, who you also may have heard of. He's a longtime peace activist. He's also just written a book recently, and he's been on a book tour. But David Hartsoe read David's book called War No More, The Case for Abolition. And the two Davids got together and created a proposal that talked about creating a tool or a vehicle. I'll just use that word vehicle to help the anti-war movement rejuvenate itself. And you know, I'm sure you've all heard lots of stories about why don't we have a strong anti-war movement anymore, and maybe it's because we don't have a draft, or you know, Americans aren't getting killed in droves. But the anti-war movement that had been so strong in the past is you know, not nearly as strong as it used to be. So so his idea was, you know, how can we build the movement back to being an effective and transformative movement? So what they did is the two Davids reached out to their personal lists of friends and activists and colleagues, and I was one of those people. They proposed. They had a proposal drafted, and they sent it out and said, "What do you think of this idea?" They wanted to bring in people who weren't just what you would think of as peace activists or anti-war activists, but also environmentalists and academics and business people, and not just the usual suspects, as I say. And then the big emphasis on international. The feeling is that if you start looking at war and war making and militarism, a lot of it will come back to pointing the finger at the United States. And I feel, personally, and maybe this is too personal and not enough the world beyond wars theory, but my feeling is that American activists really don't have very much power anymore to change policy, to change governmental policy, foreign policy, military policy, because our government has been so corrupted by money and campaign financing and gerrymandering and so many things that money plays a part of that control the government. And because peace activists don't have high-paid lobbyists to pour money into congressional campaigns, it's very, very difficult to make any headway. It's very difficult to pressure our own government. But what if we could harness internationally all the peace activists and anti-war activists in the world that want to curb American militarism, that want to resist American wars and weapons promulgation and those kinds of things. So I think that is one of the main reasons in my mind that we really need to work internationally to make war, to eradicate war. Of course, there's lots of other reasons as well, and that the United States is not the only culprit, and there are wars all over the place, and what we need to come up with is a global way to resolve disputes, and so that's what we have been working on in World Beyond War. So we're talking about not just being a vehicle to oppose the latest war. I tell people on my Facebook icon, my little profile icon, for right now it's a picture of my face, but usually it's something that says don't bomb Iran, and before that it was don't attack Iraq, and then it was don't peace with Gaza, and it just seems like Syria. There's all these. It's just one thing after another. What's the latest? The closest wolf to the door that we're fighting, and trying to mobilize about pursuing. We also get the peace movement gets riled up about certain weapon systems. Nuclear weapons and drones and depleted uranium. And what World Beyond War is trying to do is address the whole institution of war. Although we certainly think drones should be outlawed and nuclear weapons should be outlawed, we're trying to talk about the whole institution and the pillars that promote and support war, and how can we attack those pillars. And at one time, and some of you may be aware of this, the Kellogg-Briand Pact was created. This was a collaboration between an American Senator Kellogg and a French Senator Briand, and this is just after World War I. David Swanson, who I mentioned earlier, has written a book about the Kellogg-Briand Pact called When the World Outlawed War, that talks about this whole pact. But what it said was, it was an international treaty, in essence, that said that war was illegal. And the governments who signed on to the Kellogg-Briand Pact pledged that they would not resort to war to resolve their differences. And the problem with the Kellogg-Briand Pact, I mean, they got a bunch of signatories to it. Many, many nations signed on to it. in fact, the pact is still valid today. It's never been canceled or deleted from the rolls or whatever you want to call it. But there was no enforcement mechanism. And so it, when World War II came around, it sort of made the Kellogg-Briand Pact kind of meaningless. I talked about a movement versus an organization. World Beyond War is not trying to be just another peace organization. And I tell people we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're trying to take all the wheels that are out there and put it onto a vehicle that can move forward to actually eliminating war. And we want to take that
That's
serious.
really clever, Leah.
Oh, I'm sorry?
I said I like that very much. That's very clever to have that distinction about not being just another peace organization, but I appreciate very much that you are harnessing the wheels and making sure that they're all turning in the same direction.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah. And one distinction, I think, also between World Beyond War, which is trying to be very focused on ending war, and is that discussion, and there's nothing wrong with being pro-peace, and most organizations say, well, they're pro-peace, and certainly if you're, I think, we all know that phrase that peace is more than just the absence of war. However, if we could get rid of war, it sure would make the rest of the world a hell of a lot better. And then we could spend the money that we spend on war on healthcare and and housing and education and all those things. But what we really want to focus on is eliminating war. And that way we are specific instead of saying, well, we want to eradicate a disease, which is certainly could be considered pro-peace, but you could eradicate a disease and still have war. So I'm not in any way trying to denigrate what Rotary has done with polio. I mean, that's fantastic. But what if we use those energies that are around the world, and particularly with Rotary, that's why I'm so excited to be involved with Rotary, because you have the network set up and you have people that want to see a peaceful world in place. So we feel like now is the time, because of the imminent destruction of the globe, which is in large part due to the military pollution, environmental problems that are caused by the military, the use of fossil fuels that are done, and the fighting over fossil fuels, which is it just perpetuates the problem. So our overall description is a global nonviolent movement to end war and establish a just and sustainable peace. So, whoops, there we go. This is what we call the Declaration of Peace. I call it the Pledge, and this is what we are asking individuals to sign, and you can we write and organizations to sign. And I'll just give you a moment to read that over, because this is what we call the Pledge, and this is how we are recording or tabulating how many people that we have that are signed on to World Beyond War, or how we have our membership. And so is there anybody that needs a little bit more time to read that over? Okay.
Already signed. Yoo-hoo!
Okay. Yes, Kat has already signed, and Kat has signed for our We Rotary Club, which I'm really thrilled about, and that's what I want to get to later, too, about how Rotary can get involved. So right now we have almost 10,000 individuals, 176 organizations, including the We Rotary Club, and this is, the 89 countries is, to me, the most impressive number that you can imagine. That look at these countries. Some of these countries are so small, and you think, well, how in the world did they even hear about World Beyond War? And but we have people in at least one person in every one of these countries that has signed that pledge. And the reason that we're able to reach globally is now because of the internet. So this is a tool that we didn't have in the past to try to organize globally, but we have it now, and we can have We Rotary Club, and we can talk to people on the other side of the world, and we can organize globally. So this to me is just truly inspiring to see where we have allies all over the earth.
So, a question, Leah.
Yeah.
Since the United States is on that list, what does it mean once we sign that list? What does that mean for the United States being on that list?
Well, what this means is that we have people that live in the United States who have signed on as individuals.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and it may, in some of these really small countries, it may be there's just 1 or 2 people that have signed from Iran or wherever. But in many of the countries, we have a number of people who've signed on.
Great.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So our current structure, we have a fiscal sponsor. We're not our own 501c3. We're sponsored by the Alliance for Global Justice. We have a fabulous website, which I mentioned before. We are partners with something called Action Network, which allows us to communicate with all of our 10,000 people who signed on. You can send mass emails that way, or you can do fundraising campaigns or polls or all kinds of things. Action Network is a wonderful thing, and they just take donations. They work very, very minimally and don't charge us much at all, if anything, which is good because we only have 1 employee, and that is David Swanson. He is working part-time hours, and he's just does everything. He maintains the website. He promotes World Beyond War. He posts things. It just all kinds of stuff. We would love to have a bigger staff, but money is the big problem. The problem I think for raising money for World Beyond War is that we're trying to sell a concept. It's not like a specific program where we could say, well, if you give us $100, we can send, a child to summer camp, and people can see exactly what they're getting for their money. But what we're trying to sell here is an idea, and so it's a little bit difficult. We have gotten a few small grants, but we're always looking for funding sources. Our governing body is what we call the Coordinating Committee, and I am the chair of the Coordinating Committee. And we have several subcommittees: strategy and policy, outreach, et cetera, et cetera. So we're what I call part think tank. We have a number of researchers and academics and authors who have made up the strategy and policy team, and they have worked very diligently to create some documents, which I'm going to talk about in a couple slides from now, but to present alternatives to war. What can we substitute the military way to resolve problems with? What can we do instead of that? And then also to kind of change the paradigm, because some people, especially Americans, I think, believe that war is inevitable, that it's just part of our culture, that we've always had war, and that in the long run it can be helpful to the economy, whatever. So those are some things that we need to help educate people that those are myths, and we can prove it. And then part activist hub. We want to have like I said, coordinated campaigns, drawing on successes that have happened in the past to influence governments nonviolently with civil disobedience. This here, the two-pronged strategy is the first part is educate, and to get the word out. And different cultures are going to take different approaches. I mean, you don't have to explain to people in Afghanistan that war is a problem, or they have been the victims. I think countries who have been suffering from war in recent memory are going to be much easier to bring on board than those who don't feel the pain of war, such as Americans. So these are some things that we want to point out, that it's not just it doesn't not it doesn't create security, but in fact is counterproductive and creates more enemies and more, makes a bad situation even worse. And that there are alternatives, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. And the second part of our two-pronged strategy is to mobilize. And so we educate and we mobilize. And to networking with other activists and organizations, knowing about how many there are out there, and there are thousands of them. But to help, like I said, put those wheels on the vehicle and move forward, we need to know that we're out there. Create nonviolent campaigns to achieve goals, and some of the individual campaigns that we may work on are listed here. And there are efforts being done there are efforts out there already to address these issues, but they don't seem to be done in a coordinated way. We have dozens of organizations that are working against specifics, but we're not all working as a team, working together. So. Now, I mentioned the strategy and policy team, which has done a lot of work coming up with 3 different documents. One is a one-page, very quick description of what we're doing, and that essentially is what I just showed you, the two-pronged strategy of educate and mobilize. The second document is a longer 5-page document that's not too daunting to get people to read, but explains more than just the 1-page document, and it's called We Can End War. And the third document, which is so exciting to me, is very extensive, and it was the one written by the policy team called A Global Security System, an Alternative to War. Our team, our coordinating committee, is now in the final edits of our preliminary version of this document, and then we're going to be sending it out extensively around the world to other writers, thinkers, peace organizations, other people to get their input, and it's particularly we want to get input internationally from other governments. Governments, let's say, where there are American military bases in their country and they don't want them. You may have heard about in South Korea that the United States is building a deep water naval port on Jeju Island, which is one of their pristine, beautiful natural parks that the Korean people have been protesting, getting arrested, fasting, doing all kinds of things. So there's an example of something where we could work internationally to push back against the American military machine. But this document, it lays out. I'm gonna. Whoops. So these are the headings. The subject or the title headings of the different chapters, and it lays out the different ideas about how can we actually eradicate war, and a vision for a culture of peace. And we don't have the time for me to go into the big details, but I promise you, as soon as I can get you the draft of this our document, I will be sending it out so you all can see how detailed our proposal is. And I'm sure that you all may have ideas, particularly those of you who've worked internationally with Rotary, probably have lots of ideas that you could add to our plan. So when it comes to Rotary's involvement, and that's my last slide, is please, if you haven't signed the pledge or the Declaration of Peace that's on the homepage of the website, I please hope you will do that. And it just says, I believe all those things, that war is harmful and that we could spend our money better ways, and that I resolve to work towards a world, such a world nonviolently. And then ask any organizations you belong to. I know many of you probably belong to other things besides Rotary, maybe your church group or your civic group or your professional group, because as we all know, war affects everybody, it affects all different aspects of our life. And so it's the more organizations and people that we can say support this, the better. The better the stronger our stand is to say that we have thousands and thousands of organizations that want this to happen. If you're on Facebook, and I think you all are, or Twitter, promote World Beyond War, like our World Beyond War Facebook page. This is something that I can help you make a short presentation. You can give something similar to what I'm giving tonight to other Rotary clubs. Talk to your network with people that you know internationally, particularly internationally. I think this is really critical for us to develop a strong presence around the world, because so much of our initial strategy documents were drafted mostly by Americans, and so we really want to have more international input to that. We have committees that I talked about, media, outreach, financial, fundraising, research, and we definitely need more help on those. And lastly, financially, we are always needing money. Particularly, we need to raise some funds so that we can mail out these the strategy plan, which we are going to be printing. So that's going to take some money, and we really operate on quite a small shoestring. So I'm going to go back to the slide that has the pledge so you can see that again, and then I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Fantastic. Really thorough presentation. Everyone, while you're online, if you haven't already, could I recommend that you peruse, while we're still in the Hangout, the worldbeyondwar.org website? Highly, highly instructive. Okay, who's up for questions?
Is it possible to put a link to that website on our website?
Lisa?
Yeah.
I think that.
Yeah, I guess I could download my PowerPoint to the website. Yeah, I don't see why not.
Yeah. And I just think having a link to your website on our website kind of represents a stand that we're taking, that we really support that organization. I'm just very impressed, Leah, by everything that you said, and I'm ashamed that I didn't even know about your organization.
Well, I don't feel ashamed. Now you know, and now you can sign it and tell your friends. So no need to feel ashamed.
I will. Just very powerful. Very.
Well, thank you so much.
Leah, this is Eric Fulkerson, and I have to thank you for an exciting presentation about what you're doing and what this organization is up to. It's really quite remarkable. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions, if I may. The first is, a long time ago, I met a colonel, full bird colonel at the time, out of the Pentagon, who had started what was called the 1st Earth Battalion. Have you ever heard about that, or had that ever run across your awareness?
No, in the document, the long document that I mentioned, we have something called we mentioned something called the 1st Earth Conference, but I don't think it's what you just said. I think it's
his whole campaign, and what he was given an official position for the remaining years of his career at the Pentagon to do, was to literally make plans, peace plans as opposed to war plans. What do you do with a military complex when you have peace in the world? How do you transition all of that resource, all of that equipment, all that training? And his idea was that they would have a mission change that would say, we're about mitigating environmental disaster. We're about being in service to natural disasters and emergency response, but more importantly, they were about first Earth, putting the Earth first, and that we respond to wherever we're needed to make and clean up the Earth. There's more of an environmental kind of a philosophy behind it, as opposed to that. But I thought it was interesting because his model was transition, right? What do you do with all of that to transition it in a very planned, a planned way, right? So it wasn't dysfunctional and didn't
Right.
create kind of all that disruption. And I'm not sure.
There's a woman who works at the IPS in Washington. Now I can't think of it. It's a progressive think tank, and her name Miriam Pemberton, and she was a Pentagon budget specialist, and now she works for the New Priorities Project for talking about an economic transition plan to switch from the military economic, militarily based economic system to a civilian one. I do think, the National Guard, for instance, was really intended to be address natural disasters locally, and has been completely, misused by the Bush administration. I think it's a little bit. For my 20 years in the military, I would say that you have to be a little bit careful by saying that the military could do these things, because yes, they can help in natural disasters, but that's not what they're trained to do, and that's why it's so difficult to switch from a war-fighting machine to a peacemaking, like UN peacemakers. It's very difficult to do that mission because if you don't have weapons, and that's what, it's all about weapons and killing and destruction. So I would say, why don't we form something and not call it the military, but we call it, Earth First is a great name, but something that would help people, or Ebola, or when there's a big outbreak or something like that. But don't train them to harm people. Train them on how to help, and not try to transition the military into that. Not trying to make the military into that thing, but to vastly diminish the military. And what we talk about in the document is creating a non-provocative defense force, meaning one that can simply defend its own borders and cannot bomb people on the other side of the world. And so that would mean getting rid of aircraft carriers and all kinds of things. So, but I think that's interesting. And if you had the name of that colonel, I'd be very interested in trying to connect with him.
Well, I actually do have it. It's in a box in the garage, and God only knows where. Because it was pre-internet days.
But those are the kind of people that we would like to connect with, for sure.
Yeah. Have you heard of John Hagelin's formed United States Peace Government?
No.
I could give you a background about him some other time offline if you're interested, but he has formed an organization much like yours whose mission is about moving away from that orientation and actually creating a structured model for government to literally create NGOs that would mirror all the existing NGOs, but would be focused on the premise that there is existing permanent peace in the world. So so how does government align itself and operate and function in that kind of environment? Mm-hmm. And he called it the United States Peace Government. And I don't know much more about it. It's heavily aligned with the Maharishi Yogi and Transcendental Meditation.
Is that someone, Eric, that we could get as a speaker to follow up on a lot that Leah just opened up for us?
Yeah, if you John Hagelin's pretty big. He ran for president twice. He broke Ross Perot's record for the most independent votes, and he's was magna cum laude out of Harvard, went right to CERN, then went to Stanford as professor, and now teaches. He's now a professor at the Maharishi University there in Fairfield, Iowa. But he's really kind of a keynote speaker, and he gets paid, big bucks to go and speak to, large groups. Not sure if we would be able to attract his interest.
What's the worst he could say to us? No, thank you. Well,
yeah, that's true. I could shoot off an email to his publicist and see, what is he up to these days and what his interest might be. So. They might lend us one of his recorded presentations we could play. I mean, he's out on YouTube quite a bit. There's a lot of stuff he's done on YouTube that's quite fascinating.
Great. Maybe we could use a YouTube video then for one to hear from him. Yeah.
Right, as opposed to one of our, every other week TED Talks.
Hey, Steve Yoshida, would you like to come on in? Are you available, Steve?
Okay, just a second. Yeah, here I am.
You thought you might have some valuable inquiry.
Well, I'm here with the, actually having an interesting discussion while I was on mute. I'm here with the past president of the Machon Club. She's, I think, the first American to ever be a president of a Thai club. But she was saying, this conversation sounds political. And I was explaining that um, if you're not running for office or promoting a particular party, but we're talking about a concept of world peace. And in order to achieve it, yes, we have to encourage people to think a certain way, and our legislators to pass laws that promote peace. But that's not beyond the bounds of Rotary. It's permissible, of course, to do those kinds of things. So I want to introduce you anyway. Let's see, can I get on the video here? I want to introduce you to Carol Acosta, who's sitting next to me and is my host here in Mechon. How do I get video back on here? Maybe it's too dark. I think that's it.
Up on the top, usually the icon's on the top. It could be that your video icon right above your head, Steve.
Okay.
Click on.
Move your mouse, Steve, and it should pop up as you move your mouse up towards the top of the window. You should see the icon with the microphone and the video camera.
If you
That's
click
okay.
the video.
Okay, got it. All right, here I am, and here's Carol.
Hello,
Hey,
Carol.
Oh, we got it.
Hello, how are you? I see a hand waving. Just a comment of something that we have in the works, if I can talk. One of the proposals that I'm working on is for peace camps to bring the Muslim and the Buddhist young people together from the south of Thailand, bring them to the north, and try and teach them that they have more similarities than differences, and how to resolve conflict without killing each other, so that maybe they can begin to work together in the south, on the border near Malaysia and Thailand. So this sounds very interesting.
Thank you, Carol. So, Kat, I don't think I answered your question, or if it was a question. Sorry, it's a little early here this morning, and I just happened in on the Hangout. But it's working great. So you can see that all the way from Thailand, we can still participate in the meeting. And so I'm going to tell our people out here that they shouldn't use the distance as an excuse.
No, we should use the distance as a reason to convene together, to actively engage in peace conversation across the globe.
That's right.
And we are going to get more international speakers if we can get people to agree on managing the timetables.
Yes. Well, it's 9 o'clock here in the morning, so it's within reason for people in Thailand at any rate. And I think I have a new member to join us from Thailand, so we're working on that.
Great.
Wonderful. Steve, with your Japanese background, do you have anything that you would like to ask Leah, given the state of affairs that you and your family have lived through being Japanese Americans?
Well, it's a long story. that I don't need to get into. But I think, Leah, the world is really crying out for a better solution to disputes. And the things such as what Carol is doing, um, getting young people together, educating them, trying to give them exposure to a wider world is, I think, the most important thing that's happening now thanks to the internet. So your efforts really are very important and comes at a time when people are yearning for a solution to these terrible methods that we have to resolve disputes and resolve people's feeling of unfairness or hopelessness. And that's what Rotary actually has thought deeply about in the 6 areas of focus that Rotary points to. Really, ultimately, are trying to achieve a more peaceful world by eliminating poverty, by its programs on literacy and youth, and all those things are for the purpose, ultimately, of making this a more peaceful world. So we're sure glad that we have you in the club, and I think you're right on with what you're doing. This club is a peace club, and I think with your leadership, we can get other Rotarians involved in thinking deeply about what it means to be working for peace. It's easy to use slogans and our traditional ways of thought, but I think we need to address the hard questions. Rotary really hasn't thought about elimination of nuclear weapons, about overpopulation, about starvation. I mean, we do projects, but we haven't really come up with a policy trying to change those big things that create instability on the earth, because some of them are controversial. It's uncomfortable, especially in certain parts of the world, and Rotary tries to not cause too much disruption in the many places where they are. Well, I think we need to address that. We need to say what it is and try to move towards the elimination of war by taking stands that may be uncomfortable. Climate change being one of them, nuclear weapons, and the other things you mentioned. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any final questions for Leah? We encourage everyone to have a dialogue, engage with her in whichever ways you can outside of the Hangout now. But if there are any last questions or comments, please put them in the chat box, and we'll save the last few minutes here to discuss Rotary business. Lisa, can we turn it over to you to just give us an update on how we are doing with reporting our attendance at meetings and anything else from the district that you'd like to encourage us to do?
Well, we are not so great at reporting our attendance, so I just actually put the link in the chat box. So if you can just, right now as we're talking, click the link and just record that you were here at this meeting, that would be great. Yes, Leah, I agree with Elaine. Thank you so much for this presentation. It was fantastic. And we want to do a better job at putting these presentations onto the website, such that when members can't log into the live meeting, that they can go and see the meeting anyway. So along with the video, you said you could send the slideshow as well?
Yeah.
Sure. That would be great. And then we can just get that onto the website, and then people can feel like they're a part of that meeting. They can comment on it and everything else. Because we do have actually several people. I get probably an email a week of other Rotarians who come to our site to make up. So putting our presentations and our speakers on our site is also getting them exposure beyond our club, because our club also serves as a makeup opportunity for other clubs. So just the more that we can kind of bring a light to what you're doing, I think that is, where it helps us and it helps you as well. It helps the club. So it's just kind of, we just need to be a little bit better at collecting all of that stuff and getting it on the site. And so Elaine, for the other speaker that we had a couple of weeks ago, did you say she had a recorded presentation as well? Maybe we could put that on the website as well?
I don't think I got to record her because I didn't know how to turn on the recorder.
Oh, I see. All right.
I'm so sorry. But now
No,
I
that's
see.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Now I see how simple it is. Just click that button.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's simple once you've done it. It's not simple before you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But well, maybe we can gather some. I know she had some photos or something in the email from before, so maybe we can gather some information and get that on the website as well. And I know, Kat, you had Mariana speak, so maybe do we have a video from that?
Mm-hmm. I think
so. Yeah. So we just need to kind of gather that information, and then I can, I guess Elaine, you and I can kind of work together about maybe the best ways to get that on the web. I don't want to put that all on you, but I can't have it all on me either. So, but we can figure out a way that we can get that stuff posted. So, but yeah, our biggest mission right now, I think, is just to kind of be sure to share what we're doing with as many people as possible. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can do right now is make sure that our speakers, because we're getting some fantastic speakers, but we want to be able to make sure we can share them with the rest of our members. And the other thing that's been happening is that people get confused about when the meetings are, when the time changes. It's really confusing for people. I had a couple of calls the last time we were supposed to meet, and then we changed the time, and I don't know if not everyone's on the email list or what's happening. So we kind of need to.
That's a question that we wanted to bring up in the leadership group, just to say, because there are several possibilities of speakers from Africa, Europe, and that's not as easy as dealing with the people in Asia. So if we could consider having the first meeting of each month be a connection with those in Europe or Africa or India, and then the second meeting of the month at 5 o'clock. I don't know if that will be too confusing for people, but I'm just throwing it out there as an option.
I think it's a great idea. I think we just need to decide what we're doing and be clear about it and make sure everybody gets a note. Because I think what's happening is, some of the folks on the call, and then we think we have a decision and then it gets changed around and then not everyone gets notified. So we just need to do better at kind of making sure that we're solid on what's happening and then, make sure everybody knows.
Yes.
So, and I think too, I know Genesis is trying to set meetings up ahead of time because she needs to do that to manage her time. But yeah. I think then sometimes that causes confusion because we're kind of like, is it this link or is it that link?
Yes.
So I think we're just kind of still trying to figure all of that out still. So, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't keep at it. But I think we need to be aware that because we don't want people to feel left out.
Yes.
So yeah.
We need another leadership meeting.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so Elaine, do you want to announce who our next speaker is and when that will be?
Yes, the next speaker, February 10th, will be Elsa Soto from Mexico. So it will be at 5 o'clock, and Elsa just is an amazing young woman that has a background like you cannot believe. So I'm going to be posting on both the website and on the Facebook page a little bit of information about her, but she is a member, and I don't know if she's been on any of our meeting calls before or not, but I'm excited, and so is she, about what she's bringing to the group.
Great. Oh, and Steve, we need to talk about getting invoices out too. So I think Elaine's right. We need some more time to have a leadership meeting. We've got some. administrative stuff.
Since we have the leaders on the meeting right now, when is a time that we can actually do that? And how urgent do we need to do that, Lisa? Or
I mean, I would say could wait till Steve got back from Thailand. I don't know, Steve. How do you feel? Are you there still?
So I'm ready to go.
You're
I'm
ready.
fine.
Well, all right. So what about doing it before Elsa speaks next time on February the whatever that is, February the 10th?
Yeah, how about February 3rd?
Sorry?
I'm just
Yes,
wondering about... Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
so the inquiry is, does it work for everyone to do it on Tuesday, February the 3rd at 5? Are there any objections to
I'm
that?
not available on the 3rd. I'm available on the 10th. I could do an hour earlier on the 10th, but I can't do the 3rd.
Does that work for everyone?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So Tuesday, February 10th, and then it'll be 4 o'clock Pacific time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, everyone. As a way of signing out, since our conversation tonight has been about peace, just one thing, very briefly, that you learned about peace that you didn't know before. So let's start with you, Elaine.
Well, I learned about Leah's organization, and I am going to, for sure, be in touch with her to learn a whole lot more and get on her website, and I'm just thrilled at all that she's trying to do and has been trying to do for some time. So I want to join forces.
Fantastic. Eric, are you still with us?
Yeah, yes, I am. Let me get myself off mute here. Well, I really, truly enjoyed your presentation, and I learned a lot in terms. I'm very interested in that final draft, that final report that you're working on. I think it sounds really exciting to me. So that's one of many takeaways, Leah. Thank you so much for your time. Very generous and kind of you, and just acknowledge you for being pretty awesome out there in the world doing some big stuff.
Fantastic. Thanks, Eric. Leah.
Well, thank you. You guys have been a wonderful group to talk to. I appreciate getting all the positive feedback. I was excited to learn about what Eric was saying about Earth First. I mean, I think, this time in our globe's history, people are really starting to realize that our resources are not infinite, and they're starting to see that the end could really be near. So I think that the time is now, and we have the technology to work together, and we have the energy. I think the people are really starting to understand that. So yeah, it's very, very exciting to connect with all of that.
Thanks, Leah. Lisa.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what Leah's saying, and I guess you can't. There's no way to know how much is out there, right? Everybody's out there kind of going in all their directions, but it's one of the things I really like about our club is that you do get to see all of the activities that are geared toward peace out there in the world, and I think that our club is kind of uniquely positioned to pull a lot of those folks together and make a lot of introductions along those lines, and also, like I said, the more we can get on the website and share with beyond our club and other Rotarians, just increases awareness across the board. So it's exciting to hear that there are all the different activities that are going on there that are all focused around peace. So thank you again, Leah, for bringing that our way.
My pleasure.
Hey, Steve.
Leah, I'm sure you remember when I first heard you speak at Al Jubas's get-together, I really felt that you could contribute to Rotary, and Rotary would fit into your program. So it's going to take a long time for you to understand all the facets, but I think you see where we could make a good partnership, and I think what you're doing is something that needs to be brought forward in Rotary. It's something that's lacking that I think you can contribute to. So thank you for having faith and sticking to a lot of attempts to get you on sooner. But I think we're on track now.
Thanks, Steve. How about you, Genesis? One quick way of checking out?
Yeah, it's very interesting, and thank you for sharing your story. It's really interesting because it's true that this conversation is coming up so often, and there's so many of these groups kind of all over. So it'd be wonderful to figure out how you can just collaborate together and work as a force. But it definitely is worth the cause, and discussion happens a lot in Hawaii as well. So thank you for sharing.
Sure.
And for me, I would say what was really fascinating was on your website, you have this whole part about the why, and I see that you have why war is immoral, it endangers us, it threatens our environment, it erodes our liberties, it impoverishes us, and we spend trillions of dollars every year on it, and what might we do with those other things? So for me, I know that what you're trying to do could impact what I'm trying to do with the environment. We need funds to be able to build out renewable infrastructure, and if we could dramatically reduce our military expenditures. Today I was informed that America, spends as much money as the next 40 countries combined annually on military spending. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right, and so it depends on how you look at it. But I have also heard that we spend the rest as the rest of the world combined. It's absolutely ridiculous. And what's more is that many of the 40 countries that next 40 countries combined, many of those countries are supposedly our allies. So it's absolutely crazy how much more we spend than everybody else. It does not make any sense.
Well, so what I invite you and I to do is to figure out ways that we can play together to support each other. You for a more peaceful world, and me for a cleaner world. And I think together we could be unstoppable.
That's a good plan.
Sounds like Earth first.
All right, everyone. Thanks for a great hangout. We'll see you on February 10th. Leaders will get together at 4 p.m., and everyone else will see you at 5 p.m. I guarantee that you will love hearing what Elsa has to share with us. Have a good week, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.